Hello, everybody. This is Greg Kosareff, the Bearded Realtor, and today I am here with Nick Baird, a good friend of mine now. He is a health coach, and today we want to talk a little bit about coaching and the benefits of why people seek out mentorship or coaching. And so you wear many hats. So tell us a little bit. Who is Nick Baird?
So Nick Baird, myself, basically health coach, also do real estate and then raise two kids, compete as an athlete in endurance sports. So kind of do a little bit of everything and just kind of try to stay as busy as possible and as dedicated as possible and help as many people as I possibly can as well.
Okay, and so I wasn't born here in the Fresno Valley, although I came when I was 20 years old. Were you born here in Fresno?
Been here my whole life, just outside of Fresno, actually, Sanger.
Hmm.
So, actually, towards one of your listings out there on Ashland Academy, that's kind of where I grew up,
Oh, wow.
and my parents have been there ever since I've been around.
And so you have a family.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit your family.
So most of my family is actually still here. My brother and sister and I actually live within 5 minutes of each other. We live over in the Clovis East area. Then my parents are about, I don't know, 10 minutes from that. So we're all really close. We all have stayed together. We always get together for events.
Mhm.
It's been a pretty special part of my life, and especially being out in the real world and kind of seeing how unusual that is. I definitely feel very lucky that I still have an intact family.
Okay, and you're married?
Married, two kids. One kid's 5, the other is going to turn 3 in September. So my hands are always full.
Yeah, and where did you meet your wife?
Oh man, you want to go there? I actually met my wife on an app.
Oh, okay. Maybe we better cut that and let's move on to what we're discussing today.
Yeah. So it's an app that has a bad rap, but I did it for all the right intentions. So
Yeah, it's okay.
yeah, there we are.
All right. Okay. All right. Nick, I hired you about 3 months ago, maybe 2 months ago. I have always had some type of coaching in my life, whether it's mentorship through our church, whether it's physical, working out, life coaching, and I've always seen the benefits. And I got to a point in my life where I'm working out. I continue to work out 2 to 3 times a week, but I'm
Mhm.
not losing the weight. I had some blood tests done and found out that my triglycerides and my cholesterol was spiking again. I've been
Mhm.
on medication,
Yeah.
but I just was not uh, eating properly.
Sure.
And so my doctor says, hey, we're going to have to triple your dose of your medication. And I thought, no, 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 no. So I had to seek out help.
Right.
And I saw you on Instagram and I thought, man, I think I'm going to contact Nick tomorrow. And that was on a Tuesday.
Right.
And I came in, we had our weekly Wednesday meeting. I've not seen you here until that day.
Mhm.
And there you were sitting in the audience, and I couldn't believe it. I told you that
Yep.
story.
Yep. Remember.
And so I found you and made an appointment with you. And now I'm coaching with you
Right.
as a health coach.
Yeah.
And for those who are listening, I just got to tell you, I won't speak about how heavy I got or how much I weighed, but just having you sit down and coach me and giving me meal planning, I've already lost 10 to 12 pounds.
Yeah. No, we're definitely going the right direction. I'm excited for you.
Yeah. So I'm real excited, but I just got some questions about why you went into coaching. And so let me ask you, what sparked your passion for fitness and nutrition? I'm first curious because I'm assuming, been fit all your life.
Yeah, interestingly, I'm kind of an outlier in a lot of, to a lot of people, just because like even most of the coaches that I'm around have all been bigger and then got smaller. Whereas for me, that's never really been the case. I've basically always been into fitness. And I don't know that anything particularly sparked my passion. It's just kind of the way I was raised. My dad always had us watching football when we were younger, and my brother, I have a brother who's 2 years younger than me, all I can remember is playing basketball and football with him in the yard. I mean, that's just been a part of my life the whole time. And the unusual thing is, a lot of people, they go through high school, they play sports, they get to the end of high school, and then most of us don't make it to a college career. So that's kind of where it stops. And then we kind of just get into the hustle and bustle of life and kind of put fitness on the back burner. Whereas for me, it's kind of been the opposite, where not that I played sports in college, but I picked up cycling during that time. And instead of getting lost in the hustle bustle of work and family, I actually kind of made fitness my priority. So I actually jumped into real estate and personal training because I could fit those around fitness.
Uh,
So I kind of did it backwards, whereas fitness really is just one of my priorities. That's just the way it is. I'm kind of hooked on it. Care very much about how my body looks and performs. So really, I would rather have that be my priority than, get lost in riches and
mhm.
then lose my body. So ideally, I would just like to have it all, which is what I'm kind of trying to accomplish.
So your number one passion is what I'm hearing from you is fitness first then.
Fitness, I mean, outside of, the whole religious thing and families, fitness would probably be my number one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That is so okay. So as far as being sparked, as far as your fitness, you were raised in that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's not like my parents were particularly fit.
Mm.
I mean, they've got good genes, so they're relatively skinny, but um, just kind of being sports fans in general, my goal as a child was to be a professional athlete. That was what I wanted to be all through up until probably high school, where I realized I wasn't going to get big enough to be one. But
Mm.
that's kind of the one career that I always wanted to have. A lot of people are like, "Oh, I want to be policeman, firefighter, whatever," but I want to be a pro athlete.
Mm.
So
So being fit, let's just be honest, you're fit.
yeah.
Being fit, what has that done for your mindset? What does that how does that work with your mindset?
Um, I think that I'm just always pushing myself to be the best that I can be. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't do. They kind of just go through the motions of life. And no matter what I'm doing, I want to be the best that I can potentially be at it. Ideally, I'd like to be better than anybody else. That's my competitive nature. But if I'm at least maximizing my potential in any aspect of my life, then I'm, being successful. And that's what I aim to be.
Mm.
And I think I get it kind of a little bit, I guess, confused when people don't want that. I don't know why you wouldn't want that.
Mhm.
So I guess, part of what I do now is to try to help people maximize being the best that they can be, at least in the physical realm.
Mhm. Well, that goes to my next question. It says, I know you wear multiple hats. You're a realtor, you're a dad, you're a health coach. Uh, what role has coaching played, first of all, in your own growth? So, again, what has coaching played that role in your own growth?
Well, I think so. I mean, I've always been around coaches since I've always been in sports. So I think having coaches just gives you that structure to succeed at whatever it is that you're doing. It's very rare, not impossible, but very rare that people can go and discipline themselves and stay on track themselves because, anybody can be motivated for a certain period of time. And of course, we're going to have everything nailed down when we're motivated.
Yeah.
But the motivation will run out, usually
Uh huh.
2 to 3
We could
months or
talk about
whatever.
that
Yeah.
about me in a
I
little
mean,
bit.
there's a reason why diets don't typically work for most people is because they go and do it, they're motivated, and then they fall off the course because they haven't learned discipline.
Ah, so that's something I wanted to talk to you on our next visit when we get together, because I did real well for about 8 weeks,
Hmm.
and the motivation is starting to decrease.
Right.
So is that pretty normal for
A-
clients?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because I notice you're asking me questions about, different, I can't, various things, and I'm thinking, I wonder if he's noticing this yourself or already know that, okay, this client in 8 or 10 weeks, we're going to start seeing that motivation decreasing. And it's not that my motivation is changed as far as where I want to get, but the effort to get there is what I'm struggling with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I mean it's kind of normal. I mean, obviously I've seen a million times where in America, unfortunately, fitness and health is not top of most people's minds. So Yeah, I mean, for most people, a diet's just not sustainable because they don't have discipline, and that's
Mhm.
just kind of the expected part. Um, so basically, when I'm asking you questions, I'm trying to figure out how to extend that motivation as long as possible, and then also get you to a place to where it just becomes habit. So then it's not really as grinding on you. So now it's just more about like a discipline thing, and it's just kind of the way your lifestyle is now, and it's just your new normal. So that's kind of what we're trying to create because, you
Mhm.
know, you give us that 3 month period, which is great. But if at the end of the 3 months you're not able to keep going, then ultimately I've failed.
Mhm.
So my job is to keep you around as long as possible, but also to
Yeah.
make sure that you're able to keep it going for the rest of your life and actually enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, before we go on with the coaching part of this, I when I met you, I says, okay, I only want to do this for 3 months,
Right.
and I'm already the last couple of weeks thinking, oh man, 3 months is not long enough, and I was going to tell you, let's push it to four.
Right.
Just and that's what's happened in coaching in my life. I went for a purpose, thought I was going to start coaching. I was going to go maybe 6 months or a year, and some of my coaching. Like my business coach right now that I have, I thought I'm going to hire him for a year, help him get me retrained on what I need to do as a business owner. And now we're 3.5 years into it, and now I don't want to give that up because I see the benefits of it.
Right.
But the next question regarding coaching is, tell us a little bit about being a mentor and who changed your life. Did you have mentors yourself, coaches yourself that made an impact in your life?
I mean, I've always had great coaches around me. Well,
And maybe
some better
tie
than
in the
others, but
question also is, why did you get in coaching? Why did you want
yeah.
to become a coach?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the biggest mentor in my life was probably my dad. And that's not really in the fitness realm, just in the realm of how to live your life in general. I've had a lot of respect for the way he's handled things and his wisdom, coming from nothing, watching him struggle as I was a little kid, to running a very very successful business now. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. As far as what made me want to get into coaching, I mean, I've always had a heart to help people, so that's part of it. And then, real estate had slowed down a little bit for me. Wanted to pick up something else. Some like out of high school, I was either wanted to be a real estate agent or a personal trainer.
Hmm.
Um, so having so much experience being around sports, and then learning to maximize my own body, it kind of only made sense to get into that and to teach others because I had a bunch of knowledge on it.
And so I'm sorry, I'm going to just piggyback on some of the stuff that we're talking as my mind is, you used the word discipline earlier. Do
Mhm.
you feel like you are so disciplined? I mean, do you ever see yourself wanting to fall off that? I'll use the word fall off the bike. I know you're a cyclist, but
Yeah.
you're so disciplined. It looks like. Do you ever get to a point where it's like, man, I'm going to take a break from all this, or
Yeah, so I mean that's the difference between motivation and discipline. I mean, I would say over half the time I don't want to go to the gym or
mm,
eat healthy. Like, who doesn't?
wow, okay,
So realistically, I've just instilled the discipline in my life and told myself that if you want this, this is what has to happen.
mhm,
And I just keep that end goal at mine and keep my focus on that. And I've made it such a part of my life that's just ingrained into me anyways. Like, I think of it as my job. Part
mhm,
of my job, and quite literally it is now, is to stay fit because my body is basically my resume. So basically I've given myself every reason to stay fit. It's either competition, my job, whatever.
mhm.
Um, it requires me to stay fit, and as I'm competitive and want to be towards the top of what I'm doing, it's just the way it is. Like, there's no questions about it. So yeah, do I want to do it all the time? Not a freaking chance, but
Okay,
I make myself do it. And
yeah,
I also find that, like, I tell people, just get yourself in the door or on the bike or whatever it is. Once you force yourself to just step foot inside of the gym or into your running shoes or whatever, your body will generally take care of the rest. At that point, you'll start to kind of get it going, and then the dread of doing it doesn't become nearly as bad. But getting yourself out the door is the hardest part, and that's the first step. Just make yourself get out the door, and then your body will kind of follow you.
And so I wonder if that's why having a coach is so important for me to keep that motivation, because and accountability. You
Yeah.
know, I every time you text, it's like, oh no, here we go. It's
Yeah.
not a bad thing, but it keeps my,
The accountability is a huge part of it, because I mean it's no question that you can go on Google or ChatGPT now and find a lot of the information that we're giving you.
Mhm.
But ChatGPT doesn't know you. It doesn't
Yeah.
know how to read your body. It doesn't know how to read your mind.
Mhm.
And that's where having a coach who's been through a lot of those things itself, has the
Yeah.
personal experience, and has that level of accountability makes a huge difference. Even me, as disciplined as I am, I still have coaches for everything I do.
Yeah.
So do I know how to do it? Sure.
Yeah.
Will I do it myself if I don't have those people in line?
Yeah.
Probably not.
And as you're talking, what I'm hearing is human contact. We can read things online, but to me, it doesn't. What's the word I'm looking for? I mean, I'll read something online, and it sounds great. But when
Yeah.
I can have, as you could tell, we've had some very good conversations since we've met. But having those real life conversations with humans, man, it really makes an impact to me.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah,
I
it
mean, and
helps me.
it goes kind of back to that level of accountability. ChatGPT is going to tell you everything that you need to know, more or less, but it's easy to ignore ChatGPT. Like, there's no relationship there.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything to you.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to know because it's not monitoring you, unless you get into the conspiracy stuff and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when you have, say, me in your corner and I'm always checking into you, you're kind of like, if you're stagnant or gaining weight, or like, it's kind of a slight embarrassment, and you don't
Exactly.
want that.
Or you're going to look at me across the office and, oh my goodness, it looks like Greg's
Yeah.
indulging in some.
It feels weird when somebody else knows that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so knowing that I'm going to see you during the week, I thought, oh God, Lee, I got to be careful what I'm eating here, because I'm going to run into Nick and he's going to know.
Yeah.
So why do you think having a coach, whether in business, fitness, or life, is important? I know we probably touched on that,
Yeah.
but let's touch on that again. Why do you think it is so important in every aspect of our life?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to, what we've already discussed. So there's very few of us, if any of us, who can really have the amount of discipline to just have it done right on our own accord. Generally speaking, you're going to fall flat at some point. You need somebody there in your corner. It doesn't really matter what it is. I mean, go to church, like, you can know all the things about God and what you need to do, but there's something about being in the presence of church that kind of refreshes you. Same with business. If somebody else is monitoring your actions, all of a sudden there's a higher level of accountability. Like we do it in the whole coaching thing. Technically, we're our own, contractors per se, but they put a requirement on how much media we're supposed to post, how much we're supposed to engage with people, and then there's a weekly meeting to talk about it. So if I don't do that, now I look stupid. Same with my eating intake. My coach is going to know if I'm going up and down in weight, whether I'm doing things right. My training coach as well, he can see my files of the rides because it records and sends them everything. So he's going to know if I went too hard or too slow or whatever it is. So I mean, just having all of those little voices in the back of your head to keep you on track and to hold you accountable, just makes a huge difference in just about every aspect of your life. Otherwise, if left to our own, means, we're going to do kind of whatever we want, and usually that will take us somewhere that's not, the most profitable.
Yeah. So my next question had to do, is coaching for everyone? And maybe I'll restate that. Is everybody coachable?
Coaching is for everybody. Not everybody's coachable.
Okay.
So I mean, that's kind of something that you kind of have to look in the mirror and decide whether you do want to be better or not. If you're not willing to put in the work, then I mean, unfortunately, you're only going to ever be mediocre. And if you're okay with being mediocre, it's really hard to help
Mhm.
you.
What if somebody comes to you, wants to be coached, but yet they're not putting the efforts in, whatever you're encouraging them to do? Is there some people that you could kind of coach them into becoming disciplined? I mean, so there's that aspect of being disciplined. If I have a character that, I mean, I'm just, what's the word I want to look for? Like, I do really well for so long and then boom, I go back, to my old self.
Right.
Is there certain clients that you can, I don't know if there's a trick or one thing that you can do that will make a difference. Because sometimes it appears that, even when I get up at our meetings and I start encouraging, most of the people aren't going to accept that encouragement, or they're going to hear it and say, oh, that sounds pretty good. And then that's it. So what makes the difference of changing somebody where they want to do what you are encouraging them to do? Does that question make sense?
And you're not going to do it with everybody, unfortunately. But I think the best shot that you have is learning empathy and being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and understand their situation. So you kind of understand how their mind works, and then you can try to figure out how to hit that button to kind of
Mm.
help them out. And, you've just got to stay encouraging. We talk about discipline, and inevitably, most people are going to fail, even with a coach in their corner. And as a coach, it's not our job to like jump down their throat. It's to continue to encourage them to get back up. We're all going to fall. What's most important is that you get back up more times than you fall.
Yeah.
And if we're making more progress than we are, regress, then ultimately we'll take that. Obviously there's an ideal way to do things, and we want to get to the ceiling, but like I said, we're trying to get everybody to be their own personal best.
Yeah. So, a little question about, you're a cyclist. How many times have you fallen off your bike? If you had to guess, is it 1,000? Is it 50? Is that
No, I mean, it's probably, I would say mid 20s maybe.
20 times?
Yeah.
And out of those 20 times you've fallen, how many times have you got really hurt?
Well, I guess that's a subjective definition.
Okay.
As far as body, like major injuries, I would say probably like twice.
Okay.
But that's one thing where I'm like super, super blessed, and I thank God for it, because a lot of other people who would have gone through what I've gone through would break into 1,000 pieces.
Yeah.
I've been pretty fortunate that I bounced pretty well. But every crash does hurt like heck, because you have road rash. And, having separated my shoulder and dealt with road rash, I honestly think that the road rash hurts more.
Oh.
So the separated shoulder has far greater long-term effects, obviously. Like, it still messes with me. But as far as intense pain goes, the road rash is definitely far worse.
Yeah. I have a son, Greg Jr., and he just recently went cycling with some buddies of his, and he fell off his bike, and I think he bruised his ribs, and I mean, he was all and everything like that. But it's interesting because I'm assuming, and you can apply this to anything in anybody's life, every time you fell, you got up, right?
Yeah, that's not the case for everybody. It's happened to be the case for me, and that's actually part of what's helped me in other aspects of my career, like with the coaching and being a real estate agent. Cycling's actually taught me a lot, because most of the time you're going to get your butt kicked.
Yeah.
You're going to fall down a ton, and if you give in to that, then it's all gone.
Yeah.
And you'll end up being nobody, just kind of lost in the wind, and that's not what I want.
Yeah.
So, I apply that to my coaching as well, like, and in real estate business, like for instance, for the last 2 years, honestly, for no real fault of my own, the business shut off. And the only way I got through it is some of the life lessons I've learned in the past.
Yeah.
Part of that being from cycling.
Yeah. One thing I've learned in my real estate business to be successful is consistency.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we apply consistency to our health? What are some of the things you think to be consistent of? There's exercise, right?
Sure.
And then there's what we take in, what we eat, what we drink, whatever. How would you, uh, how would you explain that consistency into health?
I mean, it's just all about making things habits, and it's not easy to do by any means. I mean, it's not nothing worth doing is, particularly easy.
Yeah.
You just kind of have to practice it, just like anything. You practice it, practice it, practice it. Eventually, it kind of becomes
Mhm.
just the normal. And it's the same with developing consistency towards eating. You just do it over and over and over again. Eventually, you get used to eating those things. Your body will actually kind of start to feel bad when you put in bad foods to it. So your
Mhm.
body actually does make the adjustment as well.
Mhm.
Um, and eventually, it just becomes a lifestyle. And
Yeah.
then, it's up to you to kind of have those coaches or whatever sort of building blocks in your life just to make sure that you stay on track. You need to learn your own mind and how your mind will find a way out if you let it. So then you have to put something in front of those objects to make
Yeah.
sure that you don't get to that point.
One of the things I noticed in changing uh, what I'm eating and eating much better is okay. So I went cold turkey on the sweets for
Right.
about, I would say, a good 8 weeks.
Yeah.
I still have had no candy out of. We work here at Realty Concepts, and there's a candy bowl at the front. I have not yet taken a piece of candy from there. I
Hmm.
have not had a donut in 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah.
And so I cut all the sweets. I stopped using honey, like you told me. I don't even put honey in my hot tea. And just this weekend, Father's Day, we got one of these strawberry pies from the market. Oh my gosh. And I took a bite of I took the strawberry that had some of the cream and everything. I've had that pie before, not ever noticed how sweet it was until I took a bite.
Hmm.
It was so sweet and tasty, though.
Yeah.
I was just shocked of the flavors that I could taste because I gave that up.
Yeah.
But when you're consistently eating sugar, candy, sweets, pastries, I don't think I was noticing the flavors. I wasn't noticing how sweet it was. I was just eating it,
Right.
consuming it. Now that I stopped and I went back to it, it's like, oh my goodness, this is so sweet.
Yeah.
And that's something that's was interesting to me.
And in coaching or, embarking on a journey to improve your health, it's not like we expect you to give up everything. Like, maybe that's the ideal way to do it. It's not realistic because we know the way the mind works. Eventually, that's going to lead to burnout because
Mhm.
most people's minds just aren't really strong enough to do that.
Yeah.
So, if we're getting 75 to 80% adherence to the good stuff, and then, you sprinkle in a little bit of that bad stuff, at least that kind of keeps you on track, gives you a little bit of those cravings and kind of keeps them at bay. You still get to taste it, still get to enjoy it, but it's not a majority of your diet or habits anymore.
Yeah. Well, when I used to come to the office meetings here, they had 5 boxes of donuts, the little donut holes and everything, and it was just automatic. I walk in, grab one, run to my office, and there was something about it because I know I wasn't looking the best I could, and I didn't want anybody to see me taking a donut because I didn't feel fit and everything. So I'd hurry and get here early, take the donut,
Yeah.
and run to the office so
Trying to
nobody would
hide.
see me eating. And I think that tells us right away
I
that
was gonna say, yeah, if
some,
you know that you have to hide from something, it's probably not the best thing for you.
yeah, and I don't know if my wife's going to listen to this, but as soon as she would run out of the or walk out of the room or the kitchen, then I'd run and grab something to eat and then eat it before she got back in,
Yeah.
because she would even tell me, hey, it's like,
Yeah.
sometimes I don't think our wives could be our best coach. What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds like your wife is probably a pretty decent coach, but mine, however, not so much.
Hopefully they're both not
Yeah.
watching this.
So, I mean, God bless my wife, but she could really probably care less what I look like. So,
Really? Yeah.
I mean, that's great, but also at the same time somewhat offensive because I put in so much work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And
it,
for me, it's more health for my wife because I had to have a stent put in
yeah,
when I was 57 years old. High cholesterol, the blockage. My dad had bypass, I think 4-way bypass before he was 60.
yeah, yeah.
So it's hereditary. So for some of us where it's hereditary, we really need to be concerned and make those life adjustments because
Absolutely.
I'm fortunate. I have 4 children. They're all married. 8 grandchildren, one on the way. I want to be around. And I think that's what you asked me the first time we got together, you know? Do
Yeah,
you?
and I mean that's part of finding one of those buttons for people, that doesn't work for everybody, but I mean if you truly care about being around for your kids, your grandkids and embracing life as long as you possibly can, then you're going to look at your habits and you have to question, is this helping me or is this hurting me?
Yeah,
And for most people, unfortunately, it is hurting you.
yeah,
And unfortunately, a lot of people just don't give two craps. But if indeed, being around for your kids and grandkids means a little bit of something to you, then let's
it
take care of our
does.
bodies.
Yeah. Now, got another question. It's if you could teach one lesson from fitness to all your real estate clients, what would that be?
Yeah, so I had to think a little bit about this one because they're not terribly alike, but I would say it goes back to discipline. So obviously, for the fitness stuff, learning discipline makes a lot of sense. For real estate, I don't think it's quite as obvious, but I mean, if you want to get into a house, if you want to build wealth, you have to have systems in place to get there.
Uh,
Unless you happen to be a trust fund baby, which good for you, but
mm,
for a majority of us, it's not like money magically appears in our pockets and we magically save it and
hmm.
have money to go towards a house.
Yeah.
So it takes a little bit of work and effort. And if you don't, practice good financial habits, then you won't get to that house.
Yeah.
So I think discipline goes along with everything in life, really.
I think it's all connected, whether it's your spiritual life, just even for me on my spiritual life, if I'm not picking up the Word of God and reading it on a continuing basis, the longer I put it off, the longer it sits there and the dust starts covering the book, right? And the
Right.
same thing, the longer I put off, you know, eating healthy, you know, uh, then there's consequences to that, health consequences and all
Right.
that to that. So,
And I try to get everybody to think of food as fuel, not as
mhm,
a reward or just something that we do just because. Because your body is an engine. It doesn't just function without putting fuel into it.
yeah,
So are we putting in the fuel that makes our body function well, or are we putting in fuel that causes a bunch of misfires and we're just like,
yeah,
grinding our way to the next gas station, just
yeah,
hoping that the car doesn't break down?
yeah. So, how are you with all your health, uh, being fit and everything? How do you feel like you are emotionally, spiritually, and physically feeling today? How do you feel?
I actually think that I'm in one of the better spots in my life, actually. Spiritually, after dealing with these last couple of really hard years, fortunately, I turned, to the right spots instead of, breaking. I built myself up and used it as an opportunity
Mhm.
to make myself even stronger. So I feel like I'm in a good spot there. No doubt more trials will come. So fingers crossed I can keep it going. Um, Physically, I think I'm in one of the best spots I've ever been. I don't know if I'm necessarily the most fit I've ever been just because I'm slightly older, but
How young are you now? I never say how old. How young?
36,
Okay.
which is not bad, but as an elite athlete, it is, towards the twilight of your career.
Mm,
No doubt I was a little bit faster and stronger in my 20s. I wish I knew now, or I knew then what I knew now,
hmm.
because imagine what I could have done
Yeah.
back then, having had all the proper science in place. Um,
And then emotionally,
Emotionally, pretty good. It kind of depends on how you read that. I guess I feel like I've seen so much now that I've kind of learned to be a little bit stoic. I never really let myself get up or down, and some people kind of get after me for that. They're like, "Oh, you never smile," and really, it's not like I don't get happy or I don't smile. I'm just kind of steady. I don't really want my emotions to get all over the place because I know, like, if they get high, that's great. But I also know that on the reverse of that, if they get too low, then I know myself and I know that I lash out far more and like and kind of nastier than I really should be. So really, I've kind of trained myself to just kind of be
mm,
level so that I can avoid those lows. So yeah, maybe I kind of avoid some of those highs, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I'd rather not damage relationships than,
yeah.
you know,
That's interesting because that has to take discipline too to keep yourself right in the middle. So you don't have those highs and lows. Where me, I go high and then I go low. This is me.
yeah.
And so, uh, The benefits of those three, though, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. What I've learned in my life that when one is out of whack a little bit, then it affects the other two. How do
Right.
you feel about that? Keeping your, what is the importance to keep ourselves spiritually, emotionally, and physically healthy?
I mean, I think it's great, but maybe it's a slight bit of an ideal. I don't know how feasible it is for us all the time. Inevitably, one's going to suffer. But I think the biggest thing is to make sure that all of them don't suffer.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What's the danger of them all suffering? What happens then?
I mean, I think you almost go into a complete mental breakdown.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, who knows what happens from there? I mean,
Yeah.
bad things happen when you're not in a mentally right state. I
Addictions start playing into that, people wanting to numb themselves and different things like that.
Yeah, and if you're one of those ones with an addictive personality, much like I am, that can definitely be an issue. So I had, um, I mean, I don't know how many people know it, but I was an alcoholic back in the day. So
Mhm.
definitely used that to numb a lot of things. Fortunately, got over that. Um, but yeah, if you're, not in the right place, which to me, I mean, I don't want to get too religious, but can only happen if, there's a higher power for you. I think that you have to have like a reason to live. And I think when you have that, then you can kind of continually work towards that goal. Whereas if there isn't any sort of reason to be here on earth, then you can find yourself spiraling out,
Mhm.
really badly. And if it wasn't for that, I would have killed myself many times ago.
Wow.
Um, but fortunately, God's always rescued me and always looked out for me, and I've always had that, even though I wasn't as close as maybe I should be. But it's always been there, and it's helped,
Yeah.
pick me up out of those times.
So, what is a day in Nick Baird's life as far as your exercising? How many hours? How many times are you exercising a week, a day? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so for exercise, it's a little bit lower now than it has been in years past, primarily because we've just discovered that my body functions really well, having a little bit more rest. But it's still 6 days a week.
Six
Um,
days a week, you're working out.
6 days a week, usually about, I would say, 14 hours a week. So you've got most of them being about probably like during the week, you're looking at about 2 hour workouts, and then on the weekend, 4-ish hour workouts.
Wow.
Um, it used to be that I would do about 20 hours a week. So you're looking at, a lot of those days being maybe 3 hours, and then on the weekend, 5 hours.
Do you do it at one segment or do you break that up during the day?
No, I just do it all at once. It's kind of once it sounds like a lot, and I guess it is, but once you train your body to do it, it's not that difficult.
Okay. How many hours of sleep do you try to get a day?
I mean, I try to get 8, and that's usually about what I get. 9 would probably be ideal.
Mm-hmm.
And sleep is definitely one of your best friends, one of your best recovery tools.
Mm-hmm.
Yet some people recover a little bit better with like 7 hours of sleep. Some need like 9. I do find that if I go over that, then the body becomes really sluggish. But
Really? Too much sleep.
oh yeah, I feel like terrible if I get too much sleep.
Yeah.
But that is super important to be on top of and be aware of. And I actually recommend wearing sleep monitors because we can think that we're getting pretty good sleep because we went to bed at say 9:30, woke up at 7, whatever. But those sleep monitors will actually show you like how your levels and
Yeah.
the periods of sleeps are and whether you were in deep sleep versus light sleep. And then you got to figure out how to maximize getting a lot more of those like last two, which is going to be the SWS, which I don't remember what that stands for, but then the REM sleep as well.
Mhm.
And that's where your body really makes those recoveries.
So when Nick wants to escape from it all, the workouts, the fitness, the coaching, real estate, what does Nick do for himself to just indulge in life? Do you watch Hallmark movies? Do you read? Do you just go for what do you do to just escape from it all?
Probably just take a nap, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shut it all off, huh?
Yeah, I mean, every now and then I'll have these racing trips, and that's kind of similar, even though it's still focused around performance. But usually when I'm on the racing trips, at least I don't have like kids doing a whole lot. Or work per se. Usually it's a little bit slower time in work for me, but um, inevitably after a few days, I don't really like it. I'm just kind of one of those people who doesn't like standing still.
Yeah.
So I'd rather just keep going.
Okay. And where do you see yourself in 10 years? You'll be 46 years old. Where do you set goals that far for yourself? And if so, where do you see yourself with your career, your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think 10-year visions are great, but I also think that they're too easy to get lost in because they're too far away.
Okay.
So kind of like
That may be
somebody,
good advice for people not to, you
well,
know,
and it's the exact same thing with weight loss. A lot of people are like, oh, I want to lose 50 pounds. Great, but when it's such a drastic number, it's easy to get discouraged, and then you really don't stay on track. So I like to go with smaller goals. So most of my goals are usually within like a year.
okay.
Um, and I mean, but yeah, it's like far as 10 years, I mean, the hope would obviously to be, a little bit stronger in real estate, have fitness, really exploding. And honestly, hopefully on paper, it's a little bit overwhelming and I just, figure out how to manage it. But I also don't really want to put those pressures on me too, because inevitably I don't necessarily have control of the results. All I can control is my efforts.
Mm.
So yeah, I like goals, but I also try not to get lost in them because
Okay.
I'm like so competitive that if I don't make them, I get like super infuriated.
Ah,
So I try to reel that in and just make sure that I'm doing the things that I can control.
if there's people out there that are seeing this and they want to talk to you about, first of all, about fitness, how do they get a hold of you?
I mean, obviously you can go on Instagram and look me up, Coach Nick TBT for the coaching side. Of course,
Say that again.
Coach Nick TBT.
TBT.
Yeah, which is going to be trained by Terp. That's our team. Um, and then, I mean, honestly, if you go online and look at our individual real estate websites, our numbers are basically everywhere. So it's not,
Yeah.
hard to get a hold of us. But
Well, I'm sure we're going to post your information on this podcast so they'll see how you spell your name. You could just Google your name and I'm sure they'll find you.
yeah.
Or go onto Instagram. Is that where if we want to find information on you, is Instagram the best place to go?
I mean, it's probably the easiest way to contact me, I would say, because you can
Okay.
just send a message or something
Okay.
like that. But of course, if you have my phone number, which we'll post, then I'm always open to taking calls or text messages or whatever.
Okay, very good. Anything else you want to add that maybe you wanted to talk about or add before we finish this off?
I mean, the only thing I would add is just to encourage people to go and be their best selves. I like to break things up daily, so I'm a little old school. I write my list of things to do for the day, and if I check them all off, then I won the day, and that's my goal, is to win the day. You're going to lose some days, but as long as you win more than you lose, you're heading in the right direction.
Yeah. And for those, again, I hired Nick, and one of the things that I'm most impressed with you is how often you contact me. And it's like almost every other day,
Right.
and I really appreciate that. And that really does help me. So I want to encourage people to reach out to Nick if they have any fitness questions or goals, and I'm assuming even if they didn't hire you, you'd be willing to, give some advice and maybe talk to anybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very good. Well, this is Greg, the bearded realtor. This is Nick, the coach and realtor. Give us a call. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you for listening.